ranking potential the Batman Part 2 villains by how badly I want to see them in the movie. Now, just so you know, I'm not putting the Penguin on this list because Colin Farrell has already came out and confirmed that he is going to be in the Batman Part 2, probably only have 5 or 6 scenes though. And I want to give an honorable mention to Mr. Freeze because while I do think he would be great in this movie, I simply just don't think he's going to be in the film because first of all, he is way more fantastical than it seems like this universe is going for, and plus we saw in the Penguin that the city's flooding is not actually lasting as long as we thought. At number 7, I have Clayface. Now listen, I understand that yes, a giant clay monster also probably seems too fantastical to be in this Batman universe, but we've seen versions of Clayface that are a lot more realistic before where it's just some regular guy and maybe he has something very bad happen to his face so he tries to fix it with like surgery and makeup. Like, they could definitely take that route of it just being some regular guy. The bigger thing that makes me think this is really possible, unless it was just a nod to the character, is that in the Penguin show, you might recognize this girl as Eve Carlo. Why that's important is that Basil Carlo is actually the real name of Clayface in the comics, so this is either a very obvious just Easter egg to the character, or it confirms that maybe she's related to Basil Carlo, or she will actually become a Clayface-like villain in this universe, giving us a new and fresh take on the character, which I honestly think would be really dope. At number 6, I have Barry Keoghan's Joker. Now, if you've heard me in other videos, you know I do not want him to be the main villain of this movie whatsoever, but I am perfectly fine with seeing him as another side villain in this movie, or having maybe just another couple small scenes where he's kind of behind the scenes of things, building him up for the future again. I do ultimately think Barry Keoghan can give us a very good take on this character, and yes, the Joker is so important to the character of Batman, we can't escape him forever, so as long as it's a good version of the character and they use him sparingly, I'll be happy with it. At number 5, I have Poison Ivy. Now we're getting to the characters I really hope we see make an appearance in this movie, because Poison Ivy has been super underutilized in the live action Batman movies. We only saw her in Batman and Robin, and I really love Uma Thurman as the character, and I think her performance is actually a lot of fun in that otherwise terrible movie, but it still is not really doing justice to the character, and I think there's an opportunity to give us a new and more realistic look at the character. And one of the reasons I think she'd fit so perfectly into this universe is because of the bliss drug that's in the Penguin series. I feel like it's something that Poison Ivy could really twist and use to her own advantage and kind of give her those effects without having like magical plants or something. Plus, the director Matt Reeves has come out and said that yeah, they're gonna push it a little bit to the realm of the fantastical, just not going all the way in that direction, so I think there's definitely a way that this character can fit in. At number 4 is Scarecrow. Now this is an either or with either Poison Ivy or Scarecrow, because if they don't use the bliss with her, I think using it with Scarecrow and Dr. Crane is the next best example. Penguin show again has been diving deep into Arkham Asylum and showing us a lot of the corruption happening there, and plus we saw in the show that the bliss drug that's out there actually gives people these very terrifying visions that bring up fears from their past and stuff, like we saw Vic seeing the flooding happen again when he was exposed to it. So it seems like something that could easily be turned into a new fear toxin or something. Now I don't want them to do the exact same thing as Christopher Nolan did with his version of the Scarecrow, because yeah, this is also a more realistic version of the character, but I think this character would still fit in perfectly in the Batman universe, and I hope we see him at some point in time. I'd honestly love if he's a side character in the Batman Part 2 and then we got an entire series dedicated to him, just like the Penguin. At number 3, I have the Court of Owls. If you don't know, they're pretty much the secret society that has been controlling pretty much all of the corruption in Gotham since its creation, and I feel like again this fits in so perfectly. The entire theme of the first movie is how corrupted the city is and has been forever, and how it goes deeper than anybody could ever know. So having the Court of Owls and their talons that go around and do their dirty business and assassinations for them in this next movie and setting them up for the main villain of the third, or having them just be the main villain of this one, could be crazy. Now I kind of thought this was more wishful thinking, but again, that final episode of the Penguin gave us a lot of info, because while Oz is in the courthouse, we actually see these owl designs very clearly in the courthouse, Court of Owls. So it actually seems very obvious that Matt Reeves is teasing them to be set up in this universe. Like I said, I don't know if they're going to be the main villain of Part 2, but they'll probably definitely be there. Now at number 2 is my first candidate for who I think should be the main villain of the movie, and that is the serial killer psychopath surgeon Professor Pig. Pretty much this guy that is just absolutely insane. He's obsessed with physical perfection, and he makes these people go under surgeries pretty much and ends up making them all look the same and putting them under mind control sometimes. I think leaning more into like the horror element of this universe, having Professor Pig, and maybe if they pair him with Clayface, that could work so perfectly in this movie, giving us that horror-esque Batman movie. Let me know the villains you most want to see in the Batman Part 2, but my number one has to be Hush. I think he should be the main villain of this movie, and if you don't know, I'm not going to spoil who he is, because if it is in the film, it would be a big reveal, but he has close ties to Batman, and he is pretty much just the perfect foil and counter to everything that Batman stands for. I'm not going to talk about the Hush from the comics in details, but I do want to say the Batman Hush movie makes a really dumb change where they actually make it end up being the Riddler that's Hush, and I really hope the film doesn't do this. That was just such a weird change that movie made. Plus, when the Riddler was talking about the Hush money, there's actually this scene with Hush written over it. I feel like this is actually a reference in addition to just talking about Hush money. So again, let me know who you think should be the main and side villains in the Batman Part 2, and click down below to watch a video where I go over everything that I think needs to happen for the Batman Part 2 to not be ruined.